Level up your LA Kings experience with Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access and rewards. Enjoy great seats to the game in Section 103 along with Yamava Club access and parking included with your purchase. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings shop item at the game. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn perks on each purchase from the only leading ticket company with a rewards program. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings. Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back, Kings fans, to another episode of All the Kings Men. I'm Jesse Cohen, joined by new head coach of your LA Kings, Peter Laviolette. How are you doing today, Peter?
I'm doing good, thanks.
And featuring Zach Dooley. How are you doing today, Zach?
Jesse, I'm doing well. When does it not be the new LA Kings head coach? When are you just
well, I think
when
after
is this the head
game
coach?
one, right?
Game one?
Once you've got one game under your belt.
I probably need a game under my belt
Yeah.
before I'm not new anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
I think that's fair.
Then he's just the
he's
coach.
just the LA
But
Kings.
until then, he's
I'm
new.
still new. I think I've been here less than 10 days, so that's, that's in LA. So that's considered still new for me.
So, Peter, we're just going to dive into it because we got a lot of ground to cover and a lot of news has come out right off the bat this morning. We're recording this on day 2 of development camp, and this morning it was announced that your assistant coaches are Phil Housley, Chris Hajt, Ray Whitney, and Derek Johnson. So, I mean, the first question is, with 4 assistant coaches, as a head coach, how do you like to delegate the responsibilities among your assistant coaches?
Yeah, so it was, there was some staff that was here previous to me, and just kind of going through things. DJ was here before as an assistant, and really focused in on the skills and that part of the game, and had come down to the bench since when there was a transition in their staff. Just in conversations with him, you can see what kind of a positive person he is. His relationships with the players, and I feel like developing skills is really important. And so we're fortunate to keep him on and have him as part of our staff. The bench coaches, I've had 3 bench coaches for the last couple stints that I've had with different teams. I just found it to be really useful. There's so much work. There's so many players. There's so much video going around now that in order to get that out efficiently, spreading that work, I feel, is really important. So we've been able to, the last few stops and now this one, there's been 3 bench coaches. So, just going in order, Chris Hajt was in the organization. Really focuses on the penalty kill and the defensive side of the game. And I think that's important. You need to play good defense in order to be successful in the games. And specialty teams obviously factors into it. And so he's got a lot of experience as a coach and inside of the penalty kill. I feel like it's, he was inside the organization. He's been here for a while. He knows the young players. They're going to be coming up through our organization. So for me, there was a connectivity with that as well. And the fact that he had some familiarity with a lot of the young players that are going to be here and part of the LA Kings. His record on the penalty kill and his ability to teach for me was all, when I interviewed him, it was pretty clear and evident that he knew what he was talking about. And I feel confident with that coming up here for this season. So happy to add him to the staff. Ray Whitney was a player of mine back in 2006 when we won the Cup in Carolina. From a pro coaching standpoint, he hasn't taken that step yet. I think he coached his kids in Arizona and like the Coyotes junior programs, and so he's involved in coaching, but not at the pro level. But I think sometimes somebody's career can kind of supersede the experience that you can get actually by doing the coaching and getting in there. When I hired Ray, it was in my mind all along it was going to be for the power play, to work with the forwards, to continue to develop skill with DJ on the forwards end of it. Ray was, in my opinion, a really high hockey IQ and a brilliant player. In the time that I had him and scored a lot of points and played a long time in the NHL. And it's his personality too as well. I really liked what he brought to the table, and getting to know him over time. He brings a lot of energy. He can keep it light in the room when he has to, and sometimes you need that. You need to alleviate some of the tension that goes on if things aren't going quite your way. And so Ray joins the staff, and I'm really excited about that. It's a bit of a different hire. You've seen some players come in and have impact as coaches. Rod Brindamore is one of them. Marty St. Louis is another one. Nick Bonino is another one in Pittsburgh. Players that have come in and they've specialized in certain things, and or they've just been great leaders, and they're now taking their steps into the coaching ranks. And I feel like Ray is really going to be able to add great things to the power play. So again, the power play and the penalty kill is something that we really focused on, or I focused on in my hirings, to make sure that we can try and improve those areas. Because if you can improve the specialty teams and get them above the 50% line in the league, or maybe into the top 10, or even push further than that, I feel like you can find success and increase your point total success in the regular season and have an advantage going into the playoffs. Phil Housley is associate head coach. He's been with me. He was with me in Nashville, and he was with me in New York, and there's a real familiarity with me and Phil and the way that we go about our business. He was a head coach, a lot of experience. He's a Hall of Famer. Phil's going to be responsible for running the defensive part of the game, working with the defensemen, overseeing a larger picture as well with regard to the player development, when it has to do with sleep, and it has to do with nutrition, it has to do with strength and training, it has to do with on-ice play. There's a lot of information. A lot of coaches now, and outside of just being on the ice, are hired to try and help the athletes become better, and Phil will stay on top of that and corral that. He's also, just in the way we're doing it, he's there as a power play coach before in his career. He's done it. I've seen him do it. He does a great job, and so all the coaches are there to help each other. But I think when there's conversations that need to be had, and maybe a smaller group, Ray Whitney and Phil will be able to talk that through. And DJ was had hands into the penalty kill, and I think for Chris Hajt, just another voice to talk to him through it as well. So, and then a couple really good video coaches that I'm getting to know. They came highly recommended, and really happy with them that they're going to stay on board, and that that completes the staff as we move forward.
Did you know Mike Buckley at all before you came here to LA?
Yeah, so Mike comes in. I didn't know Mike. Maybe just to say hi, but hadn't worked with him in the past. His reputation has been great. He's done a really good job, I think, with the goaltenders that have been here. It's such an important position too. And what I've found is that when goaltenders improve and they play well, which I think they have under his guidance, it's important that those relationships stay in place. And I always say I don't know a whole lot about goaltending and the position and how to make somebody better. So when you have somebody good like Mike on your staff that can really help your goaltenders become better, they have that relationship and that connection, and I feel like that's really important. So another big part of the staff is the goaltending coach and Mike.
The larger a staff, I'm sure the more sharing of responsibilities there are. But when Todd McClellan was here with Trent Yanni, and then when Jim Hiller was here with DJ Smith, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but it sounded pretty much like both of those coaches deferred to their defensive specialist when it came to which pairs were going out. Even in a game, it's okay, you two are going out, you two are going out. If it came time to switch up the pairs, he would, defer to the input of the defensive coach.
Right.
Is that how you like to approach your role as head coach?
So I trust Phil and his ability to make decisions. There's no doubt about that. Like I said, he's got a lot of experience in the NHL as a player, an elite player, and as a head coach and as an assistant coach. There's always conversations about matchups, whether it be what forwards are going out where or what defensemen are going out where. And we try to hit those matchups when we can. And so, yeah, there's conversations that happen. A lot of times Phil's just moving back there because you don't get what you want, and he's putting out who's available at the time. You might have missed the matchup, and that's okay. We have to trust all of our players and teach all of our players to and let them know that they're counted on and dependent on, and we're not going to go changing on the fly to get guys off the ice. It's our responsibility to teach the players when we can. But if we can get matchups that we're looking for, we'll try to nail those down. But If Phil sees something, he doesn't have to come running down the bench to tell me what it is that he's doing. I'll be able to see it. We can communicate it between periods, but I have a lot of trust in Phil after working with him in 2 stops along the way.
Oftentimes with players, sometimes you might say, oh, that guy might be a coach one day. Guy might be a GM or a broadcast, just their personality and kind of how they carry themselves. Did you see any maybe coaching traits with Ray Whitney, even early on? Like, how did you kind of approach it with a guy who wasn't a coach, but you could see it a little bit?
You got to remember, he's been in the game still. Like for the last 10 years, he's been working inside the league office, so he's been watching games all the time. And he was involved in the game, just not from a coaching level. He had interviewed a couple times for management positions. But I think Ray's really good around people. He's good inside of a locker room. I've seen it firsthand in the positive impact that his personality can have on other people. I also seen him play the game and the way he thinks the game. I've talked hockey with him. And I just think he has a really high hockey IQ. There's always a learning process. I mean, I'm still learning things, and everybody's constantly learning inside the game. There's new stuff all the time that comes across your plate that you have to learn and dig into. And so, there's going to be a learning curve for him. But again, Phil Housley's been there and done that, and he's got an asset in Phil that I feel like he can really lean on him. He can lean on all of us. He can lean on me, but there'll be that connection of somebody who's been there and done that. And so there was a lot of thought that went into the staff and how it was going to be connected and how it would be connected and received with the players and the success that we hope to have with it. So when Ray was playing, I didn't really sense or see it, but I realized how valuable he was, especially to that championship team with his personality, because he had a way about him in the locker room, but yet when it was time to play, this is a guy that you wanted on the ice. And so it checks a lot of boxes for me, and I'm really happy to have him. I know what you're talking about, because oftentimes I'll ask in a team meeting when we're killing time, waiting for if it's a noontime meeting and it's 11:57 and guys are still trickling into the room, I'll ask somebody. I said, are you thinking about when are you going to start your coaching career? And then they're like, never. I'm never coaching. I'm never doing it. But, you start to see more and more players get involved in the game, which is great.
You look at Chris Hajt and Phil Housley. There's a relationship there between those guys as well. They're a couple of years in Buffalo. Does that help you too, where you're not bringing in 3 assistants who are new to each other, but there are some existing ties there as well? Yeah,
there's definitely assistant ties. And again, so that's a good relationship. And, inside of the interview process, Phil, I communicated with Phil because I talked with him first. He's the associate head coach, and he's the first guy that I brought into the mix. And then we were talking about possible additions to the staff and the interview process. Chris's name had come up. He's been in the organization. There was lots of positive things about that, and I think that that's a good thing too. I did it once before when I was in Washington. Scotty Allen was the head coach in Hershey, and I interviewed a lot of people, and I ended up elevating somebody who was inside the organization because I thought that he was the right person for the job. He's also part of our organization. He helped develop the young players, and so there's a lot of connections that went on in the relationship that Chris and Phil have, and so that's a positive for me as well. So again, it was just about trying to line things up, and there's a lot of things that have to be done inside of coaching, and I feel like that the staff that we put together can connect with everybody in all different areas.
I want to talk about the roster a little bit. You mentioned Anze Kopitar's departure in your introductory press conference. You've been the coach of a team that has, during your tenure, whether through trade or other manner, lost its captain or best player. But I think this is the first time where you come on to a team that is losing its captain and, face of the franchise for 20 years now. So as coach, how much of that is looming over all of your conversations this summer, knowing that, to start the season, it's season 1 without Anze Kopitar? Yeah.
So you're right about that. And I had mentioned in the press conference, when you lose a player like Anze Kopitar, I mean, that's a big presence and a big player and a big presence and a big person to take out of your room. And so, but in the same sense, it's now a new season and a new year, and this club has to figure out how to make its way. And he's not part of that anymore. And so when the conversations came this summer with the players, it wasn't necessarily about the leadership or your next your next captain. They're just introductory conversations. And I think as the season starts to approach and you start to see the players more in August, late August, and into early September, you start to get more of a feel for the players. You're watching them, and then when you get on the ice. And so I don't feel like it's something that we need to jump into in my first 2 weeks of being head coach of the Los Angeles Kings. This, to me, gives some time to evaluate and look and see who the next captain will be when I can actually have somebody in front of me, not necessarily over a phone call and just an initial phone call, have somebody in front of me, get to see them work, get to see what they stand for, what they believe in, and, you know, their leadership that they could provide for the Los Angeles Kings. And then I think through that, there'll be a process that I go through with Ken Holland. And, you know, I'm sure we've got some great leaders in there, and when the time comes, we'll get to that.
So then as a coach, do you like to be responsible for naming the captain, or do you sort of let the room present, you know, their selection for captain?
I think there's always good communications that can happen with the players that, you know, you can find out a lot about what they think inside the room. I think at the end of the day, there's got to be a connection with the coach and the captain, that they're on the same page, and that we believe in the same things, and that we're connected in the mission of what we're trying to do, which is win hockey games, get to the playoffs, and win a Stanley Cup. And so I think that those things will happen over time, but I've never put it like to a vote in the locker room with some pens and papers and like maybe you see in squirts or whatever. I think it's a big responsibility to get the right person, but that doesn't mean that you don't take input from the players as well.
Ken Holland had immediate availability after the first round of the draft, and he mentioned that you had reached out and spoken to Adrian Kempe about the possibility of playing center.
Yeah.
It was the first time anybody from the franchise had publicly discussed it as a possibility. There had been talk about Alex Laferriere in the past. Trevor Moore had taken a few shifts at center, but this is the first time in, 2 or 3 years at least.
While. Yeah,
that Adrian Kempe had been discussed as a serious possibility at center. Was that something that you thought of yourself? Was that something that upper management suggested to you? Did Adrian Kempe float the idea? Like, where does something like that come from?
So there was just a conversation that, you know, we had internally inside with the management and the coaches as to who could possibly take those steps if that's the direction that we want to go. And after talking with Kempe, it was easy to see that it was that he had played there before. I think he said either 2 or 3 of his first seasons were down the middle, and that he liked it, and he had opportunity and some experience, and then he got moved to the wing, and then it kind of got pushed off to the side, and he stayed there, and he's grown into a really good winger. So I think a lot of these things will get solved as we move through the summer, we move through free agency, we move through whatever might happen for the rest of the summer. There's still a bit of distance before training camp happens. And then if need be, and Adrian need to have more conversations, we can do that. There's a training camp, there's touch and go. You know, I've been in other organizations where somebody's never played the right wing, they've only played the left wing, and just based on what we might need for that scenario, we made a move in camp, and that player had his best career to that point playing the right wing as opposed to the left wing. So sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses, and we'll sort those things out in training camp.
This might be a premature follow-up considering, you know, all the things that you just said. How do you balance with a guy like that? The most consistent thing on the LA Kings, it's Adrian Kempe, right wing one. He's done it for so long, versus you like that, but you also see a guy, he's an elite player who can probably handle the center position as well and create something new that's consistent for the group.
Yeah, again, I think, you know, before we get into too many conversations about that, because then it would lead to believe that I've already made a decision, and I haven't, because, you know, we're approaching free agency. There's still time left in the summer, and I'm not exactly sure who exactly will be at training camp. And so once I get those rostered players down, then we can make more talk and more decisions with regard to that. He's proven to be, as you mentioned, he's proven to be a really, really strong winger in the National Hockey League. And so he's put up some big numbers and some big years playing the wing. So that would be great. But I think before we talk about moving players, we should get our lineup, go through training camp, see who's available, see who we have, play the exhibition games, see how the lines do, see how the players do in their positions. And then from there, we can make decisions.
as a coach, regardless of position or veteran status or whatever, do you feel more comfortable with a super line or with a more balanced distribution of, like, if you have Kempe, Panarin, and whoever as a third part of that line, are you looking to load up one just offensive dynamite line, or are you looking to spread that out through the lineup?
I find that most teams now, they have, they really have two top lines, and it gets spread out a little bit between those two top lines. When you can have that, I think you get more balance in your lineup. When you have a third line that you can send over the boards and they can really chew up some time, and they can, take defensive zone starts and play against other teams' top lines and top players, that becomes a really important line. When you get a fourth line that can go out there and provide some size and some physicality and some energy, that can be a really good and important line as well. I think I think you need a balance of everything, and it's not necessarily just what you're talking about with having that firepower on one line. That third line is equally important. Those minutes that the fourth line take, they could be the difference in a hockey game. They could swing a game just by their energy and the way they play the game. And so, to me, it takes a balance. It takes everybody to be successful, and that's how we'll try to manage it.
One guy who I think we know will be in camp now is Brandt Clarke.
Yeah.
Signs a really good extension for him. Great moment. We just spoke with him on the phone. I know you haven't worked with him, spoken to him on the phone yet. Early impressions of him and just how exciting of a player he could be with the way that you like your teams to play.
Yeah, I think that the sky's the limit with him. It's a great signing for us to get that done. Great job by Ken Holland and for Brandt to work something out and know that he's going to be an LA King for a long time. I think having Phil Housley here is going to benefit him. Phil's a Hall of Fame offensive defenseman and a great teacher of the game. So I feel like that'll be a real positive for him. We're going to try to, right from the start of camp, we're going to try and get a little bit more motion, a little bit more active with the way we play the game, and a little bit more movement. I feel like that will help the forwards and the defensemen as well. So, just quick communications with him, congratulating him on his contract. He's excited to get going here. I'm excited to have him here. So I think it's a really good signing, and it's going to be an important piece and a big part of our club.
When you have a situation like you have Brandt, who the potential is incredible, he's pushing for more, he wants more, but you also have a guy who has been here for a long time, that's Drew Doughty, who's always kind of filled that top role. How do you handle the balance there between a young guy who maybe is pushing for a spot, but also an older guy who's proven he's had some success in that spot?
Yeah, I think... Listen, how lucky are we to be having this conversation?
Sure.
That I've got a guy like Drew Doughty, who's I think is just an absolute warrior, and really has been a big part of being the face of this franchise. There's two or three guys that you can look back over the last 15 years, and he's one of them as somebody that has driven this team to success, taken them to championship level, and I still believe can do that. And his leadership and his experience and what he can bring to the table, it's important. It's not necessarily one against the other. It goes back to the same answer about the lines. It's not about loading up one line or having a weaker second line. It's about everybody feeling their role and their importance and what they can contribute to the team. And I think Drew's an unbelievable player, like just a warrior, like somebody that I want on the ice in the last minute of the game. If we have to win it, if we have to lose it, to match up against other teams' best players. And that puts us in a position where we're fortunate to have a player like that. I think Brandt's a little bit different in the fact that he's starting his career, and not starting it, but he's younger in his career, and there's still room for development and room for growth, and he'll get those opportunities as well. But it takes a whole army to win the battle. It's not just about one guy or one guy being better than the other guy. Everybody has to be counted on and valued, and that's the way that we'll approach it with those guys.
Based on that answer, then, Brandt Clarke has been sort of viewed as almost a specialist the last couple of years, right? Like, it was understood if the team was down a goal late in a game, Brandt Clarke was going to play more minutes. If the team was up in a game late, maybe he'd play fewer minutes. It sounds, based on the answer you just gave, it sounds like you are not necessarily a subscriber to the notion of specialist type players who fill out, a very limited role.
No, I think that there's something to what you're saying, and so just to be clear about it, I have not coached Brandt yet in a game, or I haven't coached Drew Doughty in a game. I know that I know the players that they are. with regard to the younger players, there's got to be room for growth in what they do. And a lot of that confidence that they get, it does come from the coach and the way that they're deployed. But I think that we should get to training camp and we should get into some games before I start commenting on anything like that. And I want the best players on the ice that can deliver in those moments. And so with that, you're going to have to give opportunity. And inside of the opportunity, there's room for growth.
One thing that Brandt said, we just spoke to him after signing his deal, was that you'd reached out to players just via text to kind of introduce yourself and say, hey, at some point this summer, we're going to connect on the phone and get into it a little bit more. What's that process look like for you to make sure you do have those one-on-one chats with guys before camp gets underway?
It's ongoing. It's the summer. Sometimes it's hard to, Kevin Fowler and I played tag, I think probably 6 times, 7 times before we actually talked today. And so it's just, they're moving between countries. I'm busy here, getting hired as staff and reaching out to players and getting with everybody here and flying back and trying to find a place to live. So there's a lot of things that are moving parts inside the summer, but my goal is to just have some good conversations. It's not going to be mountain moving type stuff. I feel like that will happen more when the players get to camp here and you actually have somebody in front of you and you start to work on the ice and you get to see them play, you get to see them work, you get to see a team grow. Then you can have more real conversations, I feel like. But you're right. Whether it be a text or a phone call, I'm trying to reach out and touch everybody. I see some players at the rink here now, so it's a chance for me to have a few minutes then, or they can come into my office and we can chat for 5 minutes. Not really about anything, just about the summer and how they're doing. And they can get to know me a little bit and I can get to know them. But there'll be a time when it comes on the ice and we got to go to work and we have to put in the work. And then, that's when I think you can start to build as a player as well, not just personal relationships, but build as a player as well.
That then sets up the most important question we have to ask you today, which is, how's Kevin doing?
Kevin's doing good. I talked to him. He's working hard. He wants to come back and make a difference. Kevin's a really talented player. I coached him, as you know, back in Nashville when he was a young kid. He first came into the league, and I love his spirit. I love his drive, his want to get better. He's trying to get better all the time. He's out early working on his game, and he's proven to be a really high-end talent here. So I feel fortunate to come back, and I had a good relationship with Kevin in Nashville, so to be able to come back and work with him again is, I think it's something that I'm going to enjoy, just because I know that when he first came in, we had a relationship and we started that career together, and now I get an opportunity to see him when he's, a little bit older. I talked to him today. I think he's got 2 little girls now, and so it's pretty awesome for him that he's grown up and married and kids now. So I'm looking forward to it.
Final one for me, and we'll let you get on with your day. At least we talked about when do you stop being a new coach, but at least for a while, I'll be trying to get a sense of, most of the questions here today are like, what is your preference? What are your philosophies as a coach? What is your orientation? So when you come to an organization like the Kings that has an analytics department, a scouting department, a nutrition department, like all of these tools that maybe didn't always exist. Let's focus on analytics specifically for this question. We know that the analytics department, offers feedback to the coaching staff. How, as a coach, how receptive are you to feedback from an analytics department? How fluent are you in the, constantly evolving conversation of analytics within hockey?
Yeah, I'm a D3 Division III college grad. I'm probably a Division III analytics guy.
All right.
With my knowledge of it,
Okay.
Not compared to, say, Rob Ballman, who's in charge of the analytics department here. But I'm always trying to learn and get better. When I leave here, I promise you, I do have a meeting set to go see him, kind of an introductory meeting to just talk about, things that they have here. I have my own set of analytics that I had created in my own Division III way. And I'm going to try to give that to him to see what he can do with it, to incorporate it, to make it better for me as a coach, things that I was using and things that I looked at during a game, after a game, before a game. But then I think there's things always too that are important with analytics. I do think your eye matters. I do think that your gut and your heart matters when you're making decisions. Your eyeball matters, but I think I don't think it's right to ignore what the numbers are saying either. And so for me, the analytics oftentimes provide a check on me from what's actually happening and what's in my head. And so it's a way for me to check myself as a coach to whether somebody's playing as good as I think they are, or maybe they're not playing as good as I think they may be. It might give me a read on a matchup that I'm stuck on if I'm playing somebody in the division, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but the numbers can tell me whether I'm right or wrong. And I think that those are positive things. I think a nutritionist is a positive thing if a player can be healthier. I think if somebody's sleeping better and they're talking with somebody in wellness and they can find a way to get more rest or better rest, I think that's important. It's crazy not to take the expertise of all the people that are available now inside of professional sports and not utilize that to your advantage. And so the analytics is a big part of the game now. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to get better. Like I said, I have my own stuff. I'm eager and open to their information. I think it's good just to check in with them every so often and say, hey, what are you guys seeing? Which may not be what I'm thinking. I think sometimes there's always a little bit of a difference. Maybe you are 90% of it, you're aligned, but I could be 90 here and they could be 10 down here, and it could be flipped the other way as well. I think it makes you think about what it is that you're doing. It makes you check and just pause for a second and reassess it, reanalyze what's going on in your mind. So it's important. It's valuable. All these things are valuable. The strength and conditioning coach, valuable person. He sends the player. He gives them the horsepower to play. The assistant coaches and what they're able to do in teaching, and the skills coach and what he's able to do. The goaltending coach, Mike Buckley, how important is that for his relationship? So there's a lot of people trying to make a player better, to make a team better. All of it's important. So the answer to analytics is it's important. You have to realize the tools that are available and make the most of them.
Excellent. Well, Peter Laviolette, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And I look forward to grilling you with all sorts of important questions once the season starts.
All right,
Kings fans, thanks for watching. Stick around. Okay.